Level 1. Innocent Curiosity. This is where it all begins. Fun fact, kids tell their first lie as early as age 2. It's the moment they realize they can bend the rules. Like saying, "I didn't eat the cookie," even with crumbs on their face. Classic. Or convincing a friend to trade snacks at lunch. The first business deal. This isn't evil. Psychologists call it social learning. You're just testing the world. What happens if I do this? Will they laugh? Will they get mad? And get this. Studies show kids who tell early lies actually grow up with better problem-solving skills. So, if your toddler is lying to you, congratulations, you might be raising a future CEO. No villains here, just kids exploring human psychology for the first time. This is how we all discovered the power of influence, one playful trick at a time. Level 2, the strategic thinker. This is where things get clever. You're no longer just testing, now you're planning. Studies show kids as young as 6 can negotiate to get better outcomes, like trading 2 chores for extra screen time. This is the stage where you start convincing your friends to play the game you like, or figuring out the perfect time to ask your parents for ice cream. Psychologists call this theory of mind, the ability to read what someone else might be thinking. And here's the fun part. Research shows kids who master this skill early often grow up to be better leaders. So if your child is negotiating bedtime like a lawyer, don't panic. You might just be raising the next great diplomat. This isn't manipulation, it's strategy, and it's your first taste of real influence. Level 3. The emotional manipulator. This is where things get really interesting. At this stage, you're not just using logic anymore. You've figured out emotions are way more powerful. Kids as young as 8 start using guilt trips, saying stuff like, "But if you loved me, you'd let me stay up late." This is also when they use peer pressure, getting a friend to join in, just so they don't feel left out. Psychologists say this means they're learning how people work, what makes them happy, sad, or guilty. Fun fact, people who get good at reading emotions early usually grow up with better social skills. So if your kid suddenly looks heartbroken when you say no, don't worry, it's just a trick. They've unlocked level 3, the emotional boss fight, and they're testing how far their new power goes. Level 4, the social engineer. This is the advanced stage. By now, you're not just reading emotions, you're using them to control entire situations. Trust becomes your secret weapon. This is where people create fake personas, trick systems, or run scams to get what they want. Think catfishing, fake sob stories for money, or convincing a whole group to follow their plan. Psychologists call this influence at scale, which just means you can persuade lots of people at once, not just one person. And while it can be dangerous, it's also the same skill great negotiators, leaders, and even magicians use to get results. At level 4, you're not just playing the game anymore. You're rewriting the rules. And if you're really good at it, you might even convince everyone that rewriting the rules was their idea. Level 5, the master of influence. At this stage, you're not just influencing one person, you're guiding entire groups. You understand human psychology so well that you can move crowds, change opinions, and even shift how people behave on a big scale. This is the level of cult leaders, brilliant marketers, and political speechwriters who can get thousands of people to believe in an idea and take action. Psychologists call this mass persuasion. It just means you can influence lots of people at once. Used for good, it can start movements, bring people together, and even change the world, like Martin Luther King Jr. leading the civil rights movement. But when it's used in the wrong way, it can be dangerous, like dictators convincing nations to go to war, or cult leaders leading followers into tragedy. At level 5, you're not just changing the game, you're writing the story everyone else is playing. Level 6, the psychological hacker. Level 6 is where persuasion becomes pure mind games. At this stage, you're not just convincing people, you're hacking how they think. You know their mental shortcuts. like how people trust something more if they hear it over and over, or how they click headlines that trigger fear, and you use those like cheat codes. This is where dark persuasion shows up. Propaganda that makes entire nations think a certain way, gaslighting campaigns that make people doubt their own memory, and subtle framing tricks that can shift public opinion without anyone even realizing it. Psychologists say this is persuasion at its most powerful and its most dangerous. It's why fake news spreads faster than the truth, and why a well-timed lie can change millions of minds. At level 6, you're not just rewriting the rules or writing the story, you're hacking the minds of the players themselves. Level 7, the Shadow Strategist. Level 7 is where persuasion becomes almost invisible. At this stage, you're not just hacking thoughts in the moment, you're playing the long game. Every move is subtle, calculated, and almost impossible to trace back to you. This is where you see corporate power games, quiet decisions that shift entire industries, or silent reputation sabotage that ruins someone's credibility without a single direct attack. It's 4D chess, where you're thinking 5 moves ahead, and everyone else thinks it's just coincidence. Psychologists say this is the hardest level to spot, because the manipulation is spread out over weeks, months, or even years. By the time the plan comes together, the target doesn't even realize they were being influenced. At level 7, persuasion isn't loud, it's silent, patient, and scarily effective. Level 8, the Ethical Void. Welcome to Level 8, where morality isn't just ignored, it's erased. At this stage, friends, allies, even enemies stop being people. They're just pieces to be moved, used, or sacrificed. Here, the Shadow Strategist evolves into something far more dangerous. Someone who pulls strings just to watch the world unravel. Trust collapses, chaos spreads, and it's not about money or power anymore. It's about control, about proving they can rewrite reality itself. Psychologists call this the rarest and most terrifying level of influence, because at level 8, you're not just playing the game, you are the game. And everyone else? They're just characters in the story you wrote, whether they know it or not. Level 9, the Puppet Master. Level 9 is the ultimate stage, where persuasion isn't just about people anymore, it's about entire systems. At this level, you don't just influence choices, you design the choices themselves. This is where conflicts are orchestrated like chess matches, enemies are turned against each other, alliances form and break, all while the Puppet Master stays unseen. The beauty, no one even realizes they're dancing to someone else's tune. Psychologists say this is manipulation so advanced it feels like fate. Every outcome looks natural, but behind the scenes, every move was planned. At level 9, you're not just playing the game or burning the board. You built the board, handed out the pieces, and everyone else is playing exactly the role you wrote for them. Level 10, the Architect of Chaos. Level 10 is where persuasion becomes godlike. At this stage, you don't just influence people or systems, you reshape entire worlds. You see society like a board game. Every person, every event, every system, just another piece to move. This is the level of global puppet masters. The ones who build networks of influence so big that nations shift, markets crash, and entire narratives are rewritten without anyone ever seeing the hand behind it. Psychologists say this is persuasion beyond morality, beyond good or evil. It's about imposing a vision, or worse, playing with reality for entertainment. At level 10, you're not just pulling the strings. You built the theater, wrote the script, and everyone else is just acting out your chaos.